And we are back on the Zero Hour. I had a few news stories I wanted to share with you before the end of this segment. As you know, we like to just kind of scan the news. Here's one that jumped out. Cuomo, referring, of course, to the governor of New York, who was elected as a liberal Democrat, but has come to be known as Governor 1%. Cuomo, this is the headline from ProPublica, which does great work. Cuomo has raised millions through loophole he pledged to close. The governor has called for closing a gap in the state's campaign finance laws, but he's taken far more through the loophole than his predecessors, much of it from real estate developers. A loophole in the state's campaign finance regulations allowing corporations and individuals to pour unlimited amounts of money into politics has yet to be closed. Instead, Cuomo has become the loophole's biggest beneficiary. What the loophole does basically is it allows rich individuals or corporations to, it limits their donations, but allows subsidiary associations or creations that they incorporate to contribute large sums of money, and they can incorporate as many as they want. So it's functionally unlimited, and he is taking advantage of that. More on Governor. We'll be following the Governor Cuomo story and the working families party angle of it in the coming weeks and months. It will be interesting. Now, here's an interesting piece: why Hillary Clinton isn't too old for 2016. There's more to the story than where Hillary Clinton's age would rank among presidents if she were to be sworn in 2017. And this is a good point for Democrats and Hillary supporters to remember. She'll have about as many years left as some of the 50-somethings who were president in an earlier era, according to life expectancy tables. You know, this is important for a variety of reasons. One of which is in terms of the debate on Social Security. Everybody says, well, everybody's living longer, so we need to cut Social Security. Not true. Some segments of the population are living longer. She, and the article goes on to explain this, Hillary Clinton, as a white person, it has an advantage in longevity. As a woman, she has an advantage in longevity. As a wealthy person, she has an advantage in longevity. So it's not that everybody is living longer, it's that certain people are living longer, but that is, when you factor in infant mortality, Social Security is easily remedied and can be expanded. So she is not, but I agree that she is not too old for 2016. The data clearly show that. And then here's an interesting article, related topic. How old is too old for president? According to the public, depends on who's running. And this article says, does a candidate's age matter in presidential elections? It's less relevant than you think, because a Pew poll asked voters how likely they would be to support various candidates with different traits, religion and so on. But in 2008, they found Democrats were the most likely to raise concerns about electing an older presidential candidate. Remember, Reagan was the oldest president on record. Bob Dole would have been in his early 70s if elected. John McCain would have been in his early 70s if elected. So back then, Democrats were of the opinion that it was a concern if a candidate was too old. Now it's flipped. Now Democrats say that they don't think it's a concern. But far fewer of them think it's a concern if a presidential candidate is older, but Republicans are concerned. Interesting, huh? A Democrat or Republican, there's a lot of unconscious bias going on. In a related topic, MRI scans reveal effect of quote unquote mob mentality on the human brain. All of us will have and what the article basically says is that one-on-one interactions are usually governed by a common sense of humanity, but when ideas like us and them enter into the equation, things turn nasty very quickly, as this article says, and these MRI studies show it, that when people are included in a group and they're told they're competing, they become much less uh, uh, receptive to messages, much less open-minded. There was, as this article says, markedly less activity in the part of the brain where moral messages, when they were given moral messages, as opposed to when they were not part of a team. In other words, they kind of turned off their internal moral guidance and became less moral when they were part of a group. Interesting thing to think about, whether you're thinking about a movement, the political party you belong to, or any other way you identify yourself. Now, for something completely different, And speaking of longevity, by the way, Poppy, the world's oldest cat, has died at the age of 24. Poppy died at the ripe old age of 24. She was born in February of 1990. She just died this past week, the same month, as this points out, as the Guinness Book of World Records points out, the same month that Nelson Mandela was released from prison. Poppy lived through the tenures of five British prime ministers, and I hope she wasn't following the news because it hasn't been pretty. She is reported to have passed away following a problem with her hind legs and a water infection. Now, if those formulas are wrong and simplistic about 5 years for a cat's life is a one human year or whatever, but if they're true, then Poppy was 120. And I think anybody who's 120 will have problems with their hind legs and water infections. Her owner, Jackie, said people always ask what we put Poppy's longevity down to. And I guess she had a good diet, lots of exercise. She had biscuits in the morning and tin food later on. She is partial to the odd takeaway. They were British. We sometimes give her a bit of KFC chicken, fish and chips, and even the odd bit of kebab meat. So Poppy was multicultural in her tastes. I suspect that genetics were the dominant factor. We will be talking about that sort of thing in our next hour when we talk about human enhancement. But from Andrew Cuomo to Poppy, we live in a world where personal preference sometimes guides our behavior. Andrew Cuomo has conveniently forgotten the principles upon which he ran. Hillary Clinton will not be too old to be president. After all, if she were Poppy, she'd only be 17 or so, maybe 15. Democrats are just as herd-minded as Republicans when it comes to thinking about things like age. They don't like it when Bob Dole or John McCain is running. They don't think it's a problem when Hillary Clinton is running. So think about that. When you don't get too identified with a political party, folks. Get identified with an outcome. That MRI scans show we turn off our moral messages when we think of ourselves as part of a group, and we give our condolences to the family of Poppy, the world's oldest cat. We will remember you fondly, as we will remember all the pets in our lives and all the causes and people who have made it worth living. We'll have a great hour coming up in the next and final hour of this week's show. We'll be talking about human enhancement and a new way to look at economics and the GDP and all kinds of fun stuff. So please stick with us. I'm Richard RJ Eskow, and this is the Zero Hour.